Hey everybody, Home/Henry here, and when the Might and Mastery season of Pokemon Go PvP started, I don't think anyone expected that the first two tournaments would be won by Swalot. Swalot has been bad in every game it's been a part of. It's never won a tournament in VGC or in the card game, but it just won back-to-back tournaments in Go. This Pokemon thrives due to its ability to shut down Credilli and Azumarill, two of the top usage Pokemon in this format. So without further ado, let's get to chatting about these tournaments. So today we're going to be taking a look at Nickname, who ended up winning the Stockholm Regional Championships, and Godzilla, who ended up winning Brisbane. So to start with, Nickname's team has Lapras, Shadow Annihilate, Azumarill, Swalot, Guzzlord, and Talonflame. We're going to start with the Winners Semifinals, game number 1 against Christian, and we see Guzzlord on the lead into Gastrodon. Now Gastrodon, quite a bit uncomfortable for this line of 3 for Nickname. Nickname is going to no-shield and gets absolutely rocked by an Earth Power. That does do some pretty significant damage. Dragon Claw is going to connect. Guzzlord barely able to hang on there, very low health, and Christian more than happy to concede switch advantage in exchange for energy. Nickname now has to make a choice. What does he decide to send in here? He has to make a prediction. He sends in Swalot. Swalot can survive Aqua Jets very comfortably, but unfortunately, knowing what we know, which is that Christian's third is Azumarill, he would have been better off bringing in the Lapras here. So a tough break there for Nickname, as without knowing the third, he's forced to make a decision with incomplete information, but he does make a nice catch, covering for the fact that it could be an Azumarill, and catching the Aqua Jet onto Lapras. Lapras is farming up a ton of energy, but unfortunately now it's Golisopod's turn to bank a ton of energy and switch out into the Azumarill. Lapras is on Sparkling Aria and Ice Beam, which means it is going to be completely walled here. Lapras farming up a ton of energy, firing off another Sparkling Aria, but this is an open team sheet format, which means Christian knows that there is no Skull Bash to be afraid of. Firing off this Sparkling Aria, that's going to connect. Switch Timer is available, but the prediction by Christian, he ends up firing off the Ice Beam, knowing that a switch would occur. Azumarill now going to be hit with the Sludge, and Christian is more than happy to let this go and trust in Golisopod to try and close out this game. Golisopod could have thrown, but Christian sees a different win con. He's going to go for a full farm down here. Nickname just cannot get another move, and now Lapras is about to be completely overrun by X-Scissor after X-Scissor. It's going to be close. Nickname can't get the Sparkling Aria, and he shakes his head knowing that this Golisopod has secured game number 1. So in this first match, it was a 50-50. He had to try and make the read of what was in back. Unfortunately, didn't get that read right, and is now down 1-0. Game number 2, he's now bringing Azumarill, leading once again into the Gastrodon. Now, we do see the exact same backline as last game here. So, it's the same lead from Christian. Christian is actually running the exact same line of 3, but for Nickname, a switch up where he has benched the Guzzlord for the Azumarill. Azumarill in this matchup should go for the double Ice Beam, because double Ice Beam allows you to outpace, but Christian, taking advantage of that fact, now makes a nice Ice Beam catch onto Golisopod. But this time, Nickname is correcting the misplay from the previous match. He is not sending in the Swalot into the Golisopod, but rather sending in Lapras. Lapras gonna fire off Sparkling Aria. This is going to be resisted damage. Golisopod gets another X-Scissor. Now this will get the Lapras pretty low, so Nickname is actually going to end up committing the shield. Nickname is going to get a big farm down. In comes Azumarill for Christian, and Azumarill is more than happy to absorb Sparkling Arias in this matchup. Sparkling Aria is going to connect. That just does nothing to the Azumarill. Farming up, we're going to see a pivot out into the Azumarill. He's clearly trying to bait back out the Gastrodon, but Christian not going to fall for it. Christian going to just stay in with the Azumarill, pick up the KO, and now when Nickname sends in the Swalot, unfortunately Swalot is going to be switch locked. Gastrodon hits the field. Gastrodon going for the bait, and Nickname shields up the bait. That is so unfortunate. Firing off the Sludge, and Christian will commit the shield. Christian knows he can get a lot of value out of this Gastrodon, but here is the switch into the Lapras. Lapras firing off the Sparkling Aria. That's going to be shielded up. Gastrodon farming up, but he accidentally farms too much, and unfortunately he's going to lose that energy. In comes Azumarill, but with a healthy Swalot, Azumarill is not going to be able to close out this game. Nickname makes a last-second Sparkling Aria into the Azumarill, and that is going to put it into Sludge range. Christian here is not hitting any of the bubbles. Basically, a sign of resignation, understanding that that move would not knock out anyway, so he's just going to focus on this game number 3 that is about to occur. And in game number 3, we're going to see Golisopod into Swalot. And this matchup right here is one of the reasons why Swalot is so dominant in this meta. Golisopod has the exact same pacing and it wins the charge attack priority tie. It has a much higher attack stat. But Swalot, very comfortable staying in here and playing this out. Getting to fire off the Sludge, Golisopod is going to be met with another Sludge, and since Golisopod does lose the zeros, he is going to commit the shield. Golisopod farming up, going for the Aqua Jet. Nickname, thinking about it. This will not be enough to knock out here. Golisopod tries for the farm down, but the bulk of Swalot is simply absurd. Able to force both shields from Golisopod, and now Talonflame, its energy should be able to completely sweep this endgame. Even though Golisopod will get to 2 Aqua Jets, Nickname can just give that shield right back. He can actually give both the shields right back, and Brave Bird is going to hit for massive damage on anything that hits the field. In comes Azumarill, gonna farm up to 80 energy and unleash a Brave Bird. Brave Bird is gonna hit for massive damage onto the Azumarill. In comes Lapras, and this game should be already over. Azumarill launching a play rough, but this is a Lapras. Lapras so comfortable in this matchup. Lapras over farming to the max, firing off the Sparkling Aria on the CMP tie. Sparkling Aria still not enough to knock out, but Nickname still very much in the driver's seat of this match. There's the switch out by Christian, sending in the Gastrodon. Gastrodon immediately met with the Sparkling Aria, but there's the switch into the Talonflame. The Body Slam is reached, but Body Slam not nearly going to be enough to knock out here. Body Slam connects into the Talonflame. Talonflame, one Incinerate, and the move Fly will be enough to knock out this Gastrodon. Gastrodon gets KO'd. In comes Azumarill. That gets incinerated down as well, and Golisopod will get KO'd. It's gonna be a Fly. Massive overkill onto Golisopod, and Nickname advances in the tournament. The next match I'll be showcasing is from the Grand Finals, where Nickname was going up against PvP David. PvP David running a line with Shadow Drapion, Credilli, Talonflame, Azumarill, Claydol, and Pangoro. Now, in this matchup, Swalot does look quite strong. Swalot, of course, does have to avoid the Claydol, but has very good matchups into Credilli, Azumarill, Pangoro, and does pretty nicely into Shadow Drapion as well. So, across the board, there's definitely quite a bit of play here for the Swalot. The leads are set for game number 1, Guzzlord into Claydol. This is a great lead for Nickname. Nickname actually choosing to bench the Swalot in game number 1, maybe expecting that the Swalot pick was too obvious, so choosing to leave it behind. And Guzzlord is going to do great into Claydol. It's a CMP tie on the Rock Tomb, so it's not even enough for an Ice Beam. The Rock Tomb, however, does reduce the Dragon Tail damage, but not enough to survive. In comes Azumarill. There's an immediate pivot into the Lapras, and Lapras is going to do very nicely here against the Azumarill. Azumarill can fire off neutral play roughs, but the Psywave damage just adds up so much, so that even though the Sparkling Arias don't do a lot, Lapras is so good at just neutrally chipping away. We do see the final Pokemon in the back for David is Talonflame, hoping that Talonflame will be able to sweep, but with the double water backline for Nickname, Talonflame just has absolutely nowhere to run. Play Rough is going to connect onto the Lapras. Lapras farming up a ton of energy and going for another Sparkling Aria. This will not be enough to knock out. Azumarill can hang on here, but not by much. There's the switch into Azumarill. David makes the Play Rough, but even this Play Rough is not going to help because this poor Talonflame just really cannot gain a lot of ground when it's so far behind in energy to an Azumarill. Azumarill firing off the Ice Beam that is going to be shielded up. David going for the Fly. Nickname going to respect a potential Brave Bird. Brave Bird could be a little scary there as a potential Hail Mary win con, just going to keep firing off the Ice Beams. But what matters is the bubble damage. These bubbles doing more and more and more. Nickname committing the shield as David goes for another Fly. Nickname does still have a move available on the Guzzlord, but he's not even going to need it with the energy advantage, getting to a third Ice Beam, picking up the KO. In comes Azumarill. Azumarill is going to get bubbled down, and that's a game 1 win for Nickname. In game number 2, he leads Azumarill, and it's the Claydol lead once again, but this time there is Swalot in the back, and Swalot looks absolutely devastating into this backline. Claydol does have the ability to win the 2-shield versus Azumarill, but if David ends up playing the 2-shield, he's just going to get swept by Swalot in the back. Ice Beam is going to be no-shielded by the Claydol. Claydol continues to farm up quite a lot of energy, and Nickname doesn't throw right away, potentially fearing a catch onto David's Azumarill. He is going to farm up quite a bit of energy here, going for the Ice Beam at the last possible second. David opting to let this go. So David more than happy just to take some extra energy advantage on the Azumarill. Azumarill going to be hit with a -2 player up. This is going to be doing absolutely nothing. But for Nickname, he now gets to bring Swalot onto the field. There's the switch into Credilli, answered with the Annihilate, but unfortunately, this game is just so over. Even without the Annihilate, the Swalot just does so well into both the Credilli and the Azumarill that it just really makes it difficult to gain any ground. We are going to see the Rage Fist be shielded. Nickname could honestly just choose to let this go, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Grass Knot does huge damage, will get a farm down, and exit with a boosted Rage Fist into the Azumarill, but Swalot is just so dominating into the Azumarill. Azumarill, here David realizes it's over, so he's just going to zero bubble a player off, and they have a bit of a laugh over it at this point, just realizing that there's just no hope in this game for Azumarill. Swalot is just dominatingly powerful here. David goes for yet another player off, so the competitors having fun, which you always like to see, and then Nickname is going to go for an Ice Beam right at the end. So even though the game is completely over, the battlers, which is nice, still enjoying themselves. And now we move to game number 3, Swalot into Claydol. That's not what he was hoping to see. He is going to throw a Mud Shot, then save switch into Lapras. Lapras making the Sparkling Aria at the same time the Rock Tomb is reached, and Lapras is going to win that CMP tie. The Sparkling Aria shielded up, firing off this Rock Tomb, and for Nickname, he's very happy to let the Lapras go. Lapras answered with Credilli. Credilli going straight for the Rock Tomb right off the bat. But for Nickname, this is honestly pretty okay, because he gets to send out the Swalot, and the goal of the line was to try and bait out Credilli. Credilli goes for good timing there, but in not throwing instantly will now have to take a full power Ice Beam, and that absolutely rocks the Credilli. Credilli can fire off Rock Tombs, but Rock Tombs do not two-shot here, so the bulk of Swalot is just simply absurd. Swalot can survive this next move as well, so that's exactly what Nickname plans to do. Nickname with a very nice overfarm with the Swalot. Swalot firing off a last-second sludge, and it's going to be up to Azumarill to try and sweep, and it's David's own Azumarill in the back, but he's behind by a bubble, and that's going to make life very, very difficult for David. Nickname also does have energy available on the Swalot as needed, so this is looking like, even despite the bad lead, this is Nickname's game to win. Nickname continues to farm up a lot of energy with the Azumarill, always wanting to make sure that he does have some energy in residual in case the Claydol ever hits the field. So again, gonna look to farm up, go for the player up. Decided to shield 1 just to preserve a little bit of HP, because HP will be required to defeat this Claydol. Gonna go for a play rough. Looks like that was a CMP tie. Play rough into the Azumarill does actually KO, and now Azumarill is just completely in the driver's seat of this game. Azumarill is going to be no shielding as the Rock Tomb does come through, firing off the Ice Beam. David's going to let it go because he knows this is a debuffed Ice Beam, but the issue that he's going to encounter is the Swalot has a move, and we see the catch. Oh no, the Swalot has a move, the Azumarill has a move. We see a devastating catch by Nickname, and Nickname is the Stockholm Regional Champion. The next tournament we'll be taking a look at is from the following weekend, the Brisbane Regional Championships. And in this championship, the same archetype, that Swalot Guzzlord core, ended up taking home another trophy. Now, the visuals for this tournament will look different because the Australian tournament did not have an official stream, but luckily, thanks to PvP Steve and the wonderful people he worked with, they were able to create a community-run stream, so that way we would still get to see the action from down under. Now, in these grand finals, it's Godzilla Ma versus Choose, and in game number 1, it's Azumarill staring down Clodsire. This Clodsire is on Stone Edge, which means without Sludge Bomb, Azumarill is actually pretty solid here. And considering there's a Guzzlord in the back, Guzzlord, probably its worst neutral matchup across the board is into Clodsire. So Guzzlord very happy that it gets to avoid this Pokemon. We do see the Swalot lurking in the back. And unfortunately for Choose, the Drapion that he's running in the back does not have a lot of play into a backline that has Swalot and also has Guzzlord. We are going to see Ice Beam launched at the Clodsire. In comes Drapion. Drapion, now Godzilla has a choice to make. Both of these Pokemon do well here, choosing to send in the Guzzlord, and this now means that Sableye could be a little bit tricky, as Sableye will now get to avoid this Guzzlord. Guzzlord does actually get defense dropped by the Crunch as well. Dragon Claw is going to connect. Drapion able to make one final charge attack. The Dragon Tail does go through. Godzilla will decide to shield. In comes Sableye, and the nice thing here about preserving the Guzzlord is going to be a nuisance for the Shadow Sableye to get rid of. Guzzlord farming up quite a bit, and these Dragon Tails are just shredding the poor Shadow Sableye. Sableye is going to go for the foul play, and Guzzlord just continues to chip away. And now this is very comfortably Ice Beam range for the Swalot. Staying in to let yourself get farmed down in a lot of situations could potentially be a lose con, but not if you have a Swalot in the back, and Swalot can survive 2 moves. Swalot, I mean, it can even go for a Sludge here and pick up the KO, but back-to-back foul play. Swalot shakes off the damage, and Swalot doesn't even throw the move, just mud shots down and takes the game 1 win. Moving into game number 2, Swalot now on the lead against Lapras, and this is not a great matchup for Swalot. Swalot looking to bank quite a bit of energy. Lapras going to strike first with the Sparkling Aria. Swalot absorbing that damage. Now we're going to see a pivot out into Azumarill, and there's honestly not a strong answer to an up energy Azumarill in Choose's backline, as Choose brought the Clodsire, which we know does not have access to Sludge Bomb, and also brought the Shadow Sableye. So Choose is just going to stay in with the Lapras. Play Rough is going to connect, and now Clodsire is going to hit the field once Azumarill has expended some of its energy. Clodsire, super effective damage from this Ice Beam, and the Clodsire will still not be able to pick up the knockout with the Earthquake. Azumarill can hang on here, and Godzilla recognizes this, lets it go, and there's a quick switch, and we're going to see Swalot re-hit the field. Swalot Ice Beam, super effective damage onto the Clodsire, and getting the Mud Shot farm down. The Lapras did leave with energy. Lapras going to be met with a Sludge. Sludge does not knock out here. Lapras is extremely bulky, and in a battle of bulk, unfortunately, neither Pokemon is able to make a lot of headway. We will see the shield from the Swalot trying to get the farm down, but Lapras barely hangs on. Lapras gets a second Sparkling Aria, picking up the knockout, and now it's going to be Sableye. And Shadow Sableye in this meta runs Dazzling Gleam, which means the Guzzlord is not safe. It looks like we do have a bit of a recording issue of Godzilla screen in this game. We do see the shield come up from the Guzzlord, but unfortunately, we know that Guzzlord is not going to be able to take home the victory in this particular game, as Shadow Sableye gets the Dazzling Gleam, and Dazzling Gleam proves its value, one-shotting the Guzzlord, Shadow Clawing down Azumarill as well, and Choose gets the much-needed equalizer. Great lead in game number 3 for Godzilla, leading Malamar into Lapras. There's a safe switch into Clodsire, and Clodsire is going to be answered with Swalot. Swalot does win all even shield scenarios versus the Clodsire, but if you give the Clodsire an energy advantage, things can get a little uncomfortable. So Godzilla decides to simplify things a little bit by committing an early shield, getting the shield call right, and now can fire off the Ice Beam. Due to the energy advantage, Choose is able to make a second Earthquake. This does not knock out. Swalot is very bulky, but it does remove a lot of health from this Swalot, and Choose actually deciding to give up switch advantage here, not going to fight for it, and instead we are going to see a banked Sludge as Lapras hits the field, and a switch into Azumarill. Azumarill going to be met now with Sparkling Aria after Sparkling Aria. There's still the Sableye in the back for Choose, and Choose really has to hope that this Sableye will be able to put in work in the endgame. But Godzilla, even though they are down a shield, I honestly think that they have set themselves up in a pretty solid manner. They have energy on Malamar. Malamar's pretty close to halfway to a move. There's a Sludge on the Swalot, which in 2 mud shots can become an Ice Beam, so there is going to be a lot of pressure that can be applied onto the Sableye. Choose able to get the double up on the Sparkling Aria here. Sparkling Aria number 1, and we see a catch onto the Malamar. Malamar going to no shield, and now it's going to be the Sableye show. Sableye hits the field, Malamar going for the foul play. Foul play does do quite a lot of damage, but the important thing for Sableye in this matchup is Sableye is basically not taking any fast move damage. Psywave is double resisted, so it only does 1 damage per Psywave, whereas normally Psywave can be incredibly threatening. Choose lets this go. Foul play is going to connect, sacrificing a lot of health here. Can't quite get the farm down, but we see a catch. Oh my! Magic from Godzilla Ma catching onto this Swalot. The undercharge by Choose, but it allows a Sludge to be reached, and the final shield gets pulled. That is so unfortunate. Godzilla Ma, such little health remaining. There's a catch attempt, and it is unsuccessful. Godzilla Ma making the last second charge attack. Superpower KOs the Sableye, and now Godzilla Ma 1 win away from becoming Brisbane Regional Champion. For game number 4, Godzilla Ma with a controversial choice, choosing to bench the Swalot. Swalot nowhere to be seen, and considering there's a Drapion lead, Swalot would have been pretty nice here. Azumarill can hold its own as well, but the more shields that are in play, then the more the pendulum swings towards the Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion is going to go for the crunch. Azumarill, again with the no shield, understanding this will not be enough to knock out, but Azumarill does get debuffed, and they're going to lose the CMP tie. I honestly like the decision to let this go and basically just go for farm on the Guzzlord, because your goal is just use Guzzlord as a damage sponge and then try and sweep with a shield advantage and energy advantage Malamar in the end game. So we're going to see a massive farm for the Guzzlord. In comes Clodsire. Clodsire immediately met with a crunch, and now my guess is we'll see a pivot to the Malamar. No, we do not. Choosing to stay in with the Guzzlord. Guzzlord firing off another crunch, and Choose with another no shield. But now this Clodsire does have quite a bit of energy. Going for the Stone Edge. My guess is we will see the no shield from Godzilla Ma, and we do. Stone Edge will pick up the knockout. In comes Malamar, but the Earthquake is reached. And this is where things can get very uncomfortable, as now Sableye hits the field. Sableye, I don't believe we'll be able to Shadow Claw this Malamar into foul play range, which means it's going to have to make a Dazzling Gleam if it wants to win the game. Farming up to the Dazzling Gleam, going for the bait. Tough call to make for Godzilla Ma. Godzilla Ma does end up shielding the bait, and now it's going to be a race, and it looks like the Malamar can actually outpace here and take the win. Is the clock available for Choose? Clock not available, but it's a CMP tie. Oh no, the Sableye getting to the Dazzling Gleam, knocking out the Malamar, and we're going to a game number 5. And in game number 5, it's a nice lead for Godzilla Ma, leading Guzzlord into the Psywave user of Lapras. Lapras does have access to Ice Beam, which does hit for super effective damage, but if you're the Guzzlord, you're oh no, we see a catch onto the Azumarill of the Ice Beam. That is just devastating, as now this puts Choose on the back foot, going to try and rebank some energy, send in the Clodsire, but losing that energy in such an inefficient manner is just devastating. Ice Beam is going to connect, and now we're going to see the Earthquake launched at the Azumarill, but the Azumarill is just here as a damage sponge, and we see in the back, Swalot has returned once again. Swalot left the team, and the team took a loss, but Swalot looking for redemption in game number 5. Lapras hits the field, and the Azumarill barely hangs on, making it to a Play Rough. Play Rough is going to pick up the knockout. In comes Sableye, answered with Guzzlord, and I think Swalot's actually going to be able to take this game off, as Guzzlord will be able to secure the win, because the one thing Sableye cannot shield are these Dragon Tails, and the Dragon Tails just do more and more damage. Sableye making it to another foul play. We see another shield from the Guzzlord, and Guzzlord is just completely running away with this game. Choose realizes there's no way to win. Choose just lets it go, and Godzilla Ma is crowned Brisbane Regional Champion. All in all, I think it's very interesting, as we do see some very animated casters there, which is terrific. I do think it's very interesting that the Swalot Guzzlord pairing, which both seemed more anti-meta picks, ended up taking home both regional championships. Even though Pokemon like Swalot and Guzzlord are not ranked as highly as some Pokemon like Credilli and Lapras, they proved to be really good at defeating some of those core meta picks, whereas Guzzlord proves to be unbelievably good at core breaking so many teams, and Swalot, once it's protected from Sidewave users by Guzzlord, Swalot is unbelievable. Swalot's bulk is absurd. It has very similar in terms of total stat product to Altaria, and being able to spam out sludges and being a poison that can beat other poisons, even the poison ground Clodsire, means that I think Swalot is a Pokemon that trainers in these upcoming regionals are going to have to take very, very seriously. You need to make sure you have a plan for how to deal with the Guzzlord Swalot core. One thing to note is a few Pokemon that can do very well into this core are the Steel types, Pokemon like Alolan Sandslash or a Registeel, just because if you're a Steel type, you are going to be resisting the charge attacks from the Swalot, and you're going to be resisting the Dragon Tails off the Guzzlord. So it'll be interesting to see, do trainers try and adapt and run more Steel types to try and combat this core, because this core is doing an unbelievably good job at shutting down the top meta picks. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is HomeSliceHenry, and this is More Slice Henry, my second channel. If you enjoy watching content like this, which is more focused on the Pokemon Go competitive series and on just educational content in general, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to this channel if you have not, and I'll see you guys in the next video.